Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike, and today I have Innocent with me. Innocent, please introduce yourself.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Heike. My name is Innocent. I'm a product manager with the Security Copilot customer experience engineering team. And I help customers onboard to the platform, get their feedback, and make sure that we are continuously improving the product.
And that's why I have you here. We're going to talk about Security Copilot and especially a new plugin. Tell us about it.
That is correct. We're here to talk about our Splunk plugin. So the Splunk plugin is an interesting plugin for us. And really the philosophy behind it, or the principle behind it as we build out Security Copilot, is that we want to meet customers where they are as much as possible. So with the Splunk plugin, we do have customers that have Splunk. And if you think about Splunk as a SIEM solution, it does contain some very interesting security data. So if we can tap into that data, bring in some of those events into a Copilot session, and then join it together with sources from other security products, then we are now able to provide this AI enrichment on top of all these multiple sources that originally started from, let's say, a Splunk event, and then build out the complete picture and really deliver value to our customers.
Yeah. So I know that customers could create their own plugins as well. Was there an option before to bring in Splunk data, or is this now a different plugin? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So the way we approach plugins is that we want to first partner with the ISV that owns the product. So in the case of Splunk, we do have an agreement with them. So we approach Splunk, and eventually we got the agreement signed, and we're able to have them build out the plugin in conjunction with us and bring it to public preview. So that's the preferred route. There will be cases where customers can build their own plugins. Actually, pretty much in many cases, so long as they have access to an API, a customer can choose to build their plugin. But we would prefer to work with an ISV, especially if we see the demand signals coming from our customers, and say, hey, let's partner with you. Our joint customers are asking for this, and then build a solid plugin for. But there's nothing preventing customers from taking some custom solution somewhere and building their own plugin. It's also not that complicated at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. So I know that there is different Splunk deployment methods, right? So you can deploy it on-prem, you can deploy it in the cloud. And this plugin works for both of these solutions, or is it a cloud-only thing?
Yeah, good question. Because when we started off, the plugin could only work with the Splunk Cloud Edition. And now a lot of our customers were asking us, hey, I would like to sign up, but my Splunk happens to be either on premises or be on this other version that Splunk has, which we call the self-hosted VM version, which means you deploy a VM on cloud and then you install Splunk in it. And both of them kind of represent the on-prem approach. So we did listen to that feedback. And what we did is that we came up with a proposed architecture that involves our Entra ID application proxy. So it's essentially a reverse proxy that helps to securely connect the Splunk instance to Security Copilot, because that is a concern when the instance happens to be either on-prem or hosted on cloud. So the architecture involves a reverse proxy delivered through Entra ID. And then we also, on top of that, layered additional security using our application gateway or web application firewall to guarantee that the only traffic that is contacting your Splunk instance is coming from known Copilot IPs. So that's the architecture we have. And as a result of that, we can now say, yes, we do support all flavors of Splunk.
Wow. So, Splunk is a SIEM, which means there is maybe lots of data in there coming from lots of various of other resources again, right? So this could be firewalls and routers and XDR and EDR and whatever customers feed into their SIEM. And what now does Copilot allow you to do when you have that plugin enabled?
Right, exactly. And that's the whole point of a plugin. So a plugin has two functions. It brings in data from a source, in this case, Splunk. And then it defines a number of skills or capabilities that actually enable you to do specific things. So yes, we do have that plugin for Splunk. It brings in data into the Copilot session. Once the data is in the Copilot session, it's now exposed to the other plugins that you have. So typically you will go into Entra ID, you could go to the Defender Threat Intelligence, other third-party plugins that you might have, even custom plugins that you may have built. And then you're now bringing in these pieces of evidence from various dimensions, because security is about getting the holistic picture. And what Security Copilot does is that it brings in that intelligence and reasons over these disparate pieces of facts, and gives you some verdict or some explanation that helps you move further along, and basically aids you and augments you as you perform your investigation.
Also, again, I think to clarify, it's not with the plugin that we now grab all the data and bring it somewhere and then, we have it with us. It's the plugin allows Copilot to ask the questions or like get the data that the session needs to answer the questions, right?
Absolutely. It's real time. So that is a key difference between Security Copilot and a SIEM solution, or like Sentinel or Splunk, for example. So when you bring in data in Security Copilot, it's brought in at that moment in time, reasoned over, and then the data is only there for the duration of the session. Unlike a solution that would bring in the raw data and just put it in a store and stays there until your retention policies determine what happens to it next. So that's the key difference. And yes, absolutely, it just brings it into the session when it's needed, when you invoke the plugin, reasons over it, produces an output, and that's it.
So how do you connect the plugin? Like, what are the methods that you can use? Do you need anything? Where can I find it?
No, absolutely. So you can find this from our documentation, but we support two methods of authentication. You could either use basic auth or you could use the API key. Obviously, we do recommend that you use API key. So those are the two options that you've got, and it's pretty straightforward. It's in our documentation how to go about that.
Okay, perfect. So I think that's it. You're connected and now you are ready to go. So I could think of millions of things that you want to ask Splunk, like Copilot with now the Splunk plugin. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what kind of demo did you bring with you?
I did bring a demo here that showcases how we can have Splunk as our starting point, look at some events that came from in there, and then pair them together with insights from Entra ID, Defender Threat Intelligence, Intune, and then build out a holistic picture, generate a report, and send it to a ticketing system, in this case, ServiceNow.
Can you show me?
Oh, yes, let's get into it. So in this case, we want to begin by retrieving saved searches from Splunk. So I'm going to hit here saved search, which is going to go out and bring us back at a couple of searches that we have within our Splunk instance. And then we are going to use that as a basis to conduct our investigation. So here we are. We have our saved searches back. We have a couple of them that have come back here. So we are interested in this first one here, top denied firewall users and IPs. So the next thing we might want to do is to do a dispatch of that search. So the saved search basically gives us a list of what saved queries. You might think of this as detection rules or saved queries that you've created in the past, and now you want to activate them through this dispatch command that goes and runs them and then brings you back fresh events. So that's what has happened there. And now we are looking for the events that came from that recently dispatched search. Now here we have the results, and we take an interest here on this particular second line here that has got an identity. We want to begin with investigating the identity. We all know that the identity is a new perimeter in security, so we really want to start there and see what we can find out. So we begin by now coming from Splunk, going now to the Entra plugin. So this is now our first party Microsoft Entra ID plugin to get information about this user.
Okay, just so everybody follows, I think so that you ask to get the alerts from Splunk, right? So what does it mean, the dispatch? I know here is, of course, use Entra, tell me about that person, so it knows which plugin to use to get the data.
Correct.
What does it mean, dispatch the search?
Yes. A good question. So as I said, We started from saved searches. So these searches had been created in the past. You could think of this as like a detection rule. So you create a Splunk query, you say what you want, and these would be queries that are interesting to you, things that you would want to run periodically. So that's really the principle. So we are interested in a certain kind of results back from a Splunk index. So in this case, the top night firewall users and the IPs. That's the search that we defined earlier on. And then what we are doing now is that we are activating that search. If you think about it, it's like running a detection rule. So I want to run a query. I think the best way to think about it is that you write a query and then you run it. So, but in this case, because the query has been saved, now we just take the name of that query and then we say activate this or run it. So dispatch is something you can think of as running a query.
Okay. Do you need to be Splunk expert to know all of this, or is this a Copilot expertise to know the prompts?
Well, so because this is a Splunk plugin, this is lingo or parlance that the folks from Splunk would be very comfortable with. They would fully understand what does the saved search mean, what does dispatching it mean. So they would already have that in mind. But later on, I will show you how we can take care of that problem. So we can actually encapsulate all these prompts that we are submitting in free form or in natural language. We can actually put them together in what we call a prompt book. And the next time you want to run this investigation is you just click one or two places and boom, the whole sequence is followed. But right now we are just stepping through it to show how it works. So to just clarify how we got here in the first place.
And you're trying what to do? Like you got an alert and now you're trying now to find more evidence about a user. Just I want to follow you. What usually I love to think myself. What could be next? Like
Yes.
I want to. Yes. So what are we trying to do?
Exactly. So here's the point. So we are trying to investigate this IP was blocked. So remember, the original search is denied firewall and users. So we want to find out why were these people denied. So that is really the premise. So we look at the IP, we look at the user. We are trying to basically broaden the investigation to look at all those entities that are typically associated with an incident. So that could be the device, it could be the identity, could be the reputation of the IP, things like those. So we are trying to build out the holistic picture by starting from key entities and diving deeper.
Awesome.
Right. So that's what we're doing here. We now get the user. We want to focus on this user. We get the details about the user from Entra ID. So that's what's happened here. And then now we also had an IP involved. So we turn to a Defender Threat Intelligence and ask about the IP that was used by the user we've just seen up here. So Defender Threat Intelligence is going to look at that IP, come back and give us its own reputation or its verdict about the reputation of the IP. And here we are seeing that the IP has got some associations of resolving to multiple domain names. So that's some insight that we are getting from our Defender Threat Intelligence. And then further along, we can now also pivot to another dimension of the user. So we are trying to see what conditional access policies apply to this user so that we can kind of see what's the level of risk, what is the kind of exposure that might be involved with this user. Because if there are any gaps, let's say there are conditional access policies that do not cover this user, then that will give us an idea of where else we might need to go and see what do we need to do to drill down further along those lines. The other thing it does is that given that there's quite a bit of information here about the policies that have not applied to the user, eventually as we close the investigation, we are going to task Security Copilot to use its intelligence, its brains, to analyze all these lots of text for us and then give us a quick answer of, hey, what is going on? What presents a risk here? Where do we need to focus to tighten down things? So that's another thing we are doing there to make sure that beyond this investigation, we even get more secure going forward. Okay, so that's on the policies. The next thing we want to do is also explore the device dimension, because if you're going to have an incident, most likely there will be some device, some host that was involved. So in this case, we go to Intune, again, another first-party plugin that is able to tell us which devices are assigned to this user. So it gets us 2 devices up here. So we know, okay, we need to drill down further in these devices, see what activity may have happened there that could have contributed to this incident. So we do ask Defender XDR if these devices have been onboarded there, just to see, again, what's the level of risk that might be involved with these devices and this user. And Defender comes back, tells us that this device indeed has some high level of exposure, and the reasons why are this. There's some potentially unwanted applications running there. Exploit guard is off. There's some issues with the firewall.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah.
Really lots of valuable information here. Even valuable software is in there, has been picked up. So all this coming right back at us, given that we were able to pivot to the device. So we could go in multiple dimensions, but what we want to do now is to close this out and get a summary of this investigation. And to do that, we can actually have a nice, very elaborate prompt here that's been pre-built. And this is another advantage of working with the prompt books that I'll show you, because this is not something that you could potentially type all the time. You really want to get reports in a very specific way. So that's why we have this pretty long and detailed guidance that we are giving to Security Copilot. We are saying, don't just give us a random summary, give us a summary in a way that we want it to be, and in a way that also highlights the important pieces. So for example, you're seeing here, it has a finding here on the left, and then it has a risk level that it assigns to it and a recommendation. And this is precisely what we specified in that prompt where we were asking to get a summary of the incident. And then we get subsections here about the device posture. We see all that was going on with the device. We see all that was going on with the conditional access policies. We see some gaps here. We have one here that's considered overly permissive. So this is something to look at further along. And then we have got prioritized actions. So for the malicious IP, go ahead and block that, patch these vulnerabilities. It even gives you an estimated timeline, obviously, for this one, because it has already made the assessment. So this is where the AI enrichment comes in. It looked at the raw facts and it made a determination that for this particular critical vulnerability on the host that we identified the user was using, needs an immediate action. So it even gives you that indication of this is not something you're going to sit around and wait to do. Go and do it immediately. So on and on gives us all those recommendations. And then finally now, this is another piece where we have additional third-party plugins coming into play. So let's assume you're using ServiceNow as your ticketing system. You might want to have this summary sent out to ServiceNow, and that's what's happening here. So we are asking Copilot to append this summary to ServiceNow. So if we move over to ServiceNow, we see exactly the same summary. So you see here the findings, everything that we are seeing here. And then the cool thing again is that from here, or at a later stage, I could right-click here on the session link. And when I select this, it's actually going to take me back to where we came from. So this is a session that we just built, and we are able to go back to it and we can advance further along. We can change some things. We can get some more clarity. We can adjust some prompts. So this is a very good partnership between Security Copilot and the ticketing system.
This is pretty cool. And I think just to summarize, you said it already, but you can now create a prompt book. How does that work again? You just click on a button, or is there a little bit more work to do?
Absolutely. Very little work to do. So what I would do is that I would come and check here. And what it would do is that it would select all these prompts. So you see they have all been selected.
Yeah.
The next thing I would do is that I would click on this button here, create prompt book. And voila, it creates a prompt book. I can search for it here. I know that I called it something to do with VIP. And now if I go here and go to the details, here it is. You have all the plugins that are required automatically identified here. And then we have all those prompts that we had issued along the way. They have automatically been added in here. And this is now my prompt book. If I want to execute all those steps without having to remember exactly what did I put in this very long summary prompt, I just hit this button and that will go out, execute all those steps in exactly the same way and bring us back the new or updated results from that execution.
But you could, before hitting submit, change the username, the IP address, the name of the alert or something, right? Because you probably want to investigate something different.
Exactly. So you would create some variables. So you would create within the prompt book, you would create some placeholders, which allows you to put in whatever specific variable you want. It could be a device name, it could be a username. Absolutely correct.
Awesome. So I think the call to action for everyone is now who uses Splunk and Copilot to go check it out, right? So it's easy. Does it cost anything, the Splunk plugin in addition? Like, do you need to pay for the plugin?
No, the plugins, none of the Security Copilot plugins are billable. If there's any cost, it would probably be depending on the model of the ISV. So whether it's Splunk, whether it's the other 40 plus that we have within Copilot today, if they have some requirement on their side, could be a licensing requirement. It could be if they charge per use on that platform itself, not the plugin. The plugins themselves are not billable. The only thing that's billable, of course, is whatever results it brings, whatever transactions it makes, whatever prompts it processes, those will be billed in the regular way in terms of security compute units. So that's really what happens. But the plugin itself does not necessarily have a separate cost.
Okay.
It only costs what you use it, like we have used it here today.
So Innocent, that was great. So thank you so much for being my expert on today's episode, bringing such a great demo with you. So again, Splunk now can enrich our Copilot investigations. Any last words from you?
Oh, sure. So we really recommend that our customers go out, test the plugin, give us feedback. We are always looking out for feedback, wanting to learn how can we improve it, what do we need to continue doing, and stuff like that. So please go ahead, give it a run, and give us your feedback.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.